Okay, so I guess now we're sort of at the midway point, I guess, of Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Um, Technically, I guess that means we're like a quarter of the way through this Marvel Netflix catch-up. Anyway, let's start things off with episode 5 of Luke Cage, Just to Get a Rep. We open up with Luke going through the rubble of the Chinese restaurant, the public sort of stopping by to notice, Misty Knight as well. It turns out he's looking for an old picture of Reva Connors. At that point, we then go to Cottonmouth at his headquarters, and it turns out that Cottonmouth's finances have been pretty much wiped out. The police have all the funds from the Addicts Center, to the exception of the nightclub and Mariah's holdings that they share. Yeah, he's basically broke. So he dispatches a bunch of his goons out to collect some advances on his protection money, or whatever they can get their hands on. And some of the goons start referring to the victims to Luke Cage. Basically, a couple of them, mainly one woman named Aisha, whose father was a prominent baseball player of some kind. I don't know if, yeah, I hesitate to say minor league baseball player, but yeah, a prominent baseball player in Harlem, and had a championship ring that was taken. Basically, they go to Luke. Luke begins to work his way. He goes to Cottonmouth. There's a confrontation. A few gunshots go off, and Luke's skin obviously stops them. And Shades is there, and he recognizes this as, oh, this was the experiments that were going on at the prison. This is Carl Lucas. I thought he was dead. He sort of explains it to Cottonmouth. And he says, look, if you want to stop it, this is probably the only way. And he shows him this specially made bullet called the Judas bullet that basically it shoots through armor. It doesn't quite wound, but it will explode within a few seconds, and that should be able to kill Luke Cage. He doesn't say what exactly it's made from, but it's not a metal not of Earth. Now, does that mean something like some sort of Chitauri material or Kree material? Because we've seen those pop up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers, obviously. Or is it something like, say, Uru from Asgard? Or could it possibly be vibranium? Not entirely sure. Along this time, we also have the Luke Cage debut of Rosario Dawson's character, Claire Temple. Very funny given what happened, we'll be explaining later. But at this point, Claire has quit her job at a hospital. She's looking for possibly to open up a special hospital to cater to the world of the specials, as they're called, or superheroes, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, Cottonmouth is trying to get his back with Cottonmouth. He's trying to get his hands on some of this material, and basically Shade says, look, the only way you're going to do this is you got to front your nightclub as collateral to Diamondback, and then we'll swing you some. And yeah, basically again, because Cottonmouth's really out of money, so, and Diamondback is not pleased. As this is happening, Misty Knight is informed that her partner, Raphael Scarf, is under investigation. She doesn't quite believe it at first. And Scarf kind of gets tipped off that he's under investigation, because it turns out one of the internal affairs officers, Perez, is also on Cottonmouth's payroll. Around this time, Cottonmouth also comes to him and basically says, yeah, you're going to pick these weapons up for me. And Scarf at this point is kind of fed up with it. He says, I'm going to get back at him. So even though he picks up the weapons, he doesn't actually deliver them. He says, he tries to pass it off that he's holding, he tries, we'll get to what he tries to do after that. And the episode basically culminates at Pop's memorial service, where Cottonmouth gets up and he explains, we need to keep Harlem within Harlem. We can't allow interlopers to come in and dictate everything to us. And that's where, that's where he ends. Luke then gets up and he says that he wants to protect innocent people from harm, that he knows that there are good, trusting people out there. And he basically gets up there and wins the crowd back over to his side. And that's basically how the episode ends. Okay, this takes us into episode 6 Suckers Need Bodyguards. We open up with another cameo appearance from one of the Marvel Netflix shows. Trish Walker is hosting a call-in show about Luke Cage. The funny thing is, I talked about Trish, I believe, in my Jessica Jones review, and yeah, silly, stupid me, I failed to realize that it was Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat. Like I said, you keep hearing Trish, but you're so used to her being called Patsy, which is what she was in the comics. So, yeah, silly me. Anyway, Cottonmouth meets up with Scarf. Scarf tries to basically squeeze an additional $100,000 out of Cottonmouth. Cottonmouth basically gets angry, they get into a fight. Cottonmouth gets his hands on Scarf's gun and shoots him with it. Doesn't kill him right away, but yeah, leaves him bleeding. As the word of this starts to get around, Mariah chastises Cottonmouth because, one, he shot a cop, so yeah, though this can easily be led back to him, and because he let him live, again, he knows everything, so he can easily turn them in. And it's also earlier, just before that, Luke had confronted her because she's working on sort of a fluff piece for one of the local news networks. As this happens later, Claire actually meets up with Luke Cage again for the first time since Jessica Jones. They sort of start talking. She tries to convince Luke that to use his abilities for good, which is weird because I thought that's kind of what happened at the end of episode 4. He basically made his presence known and that he's going to start... And I mean, the end of the previous episode 5, at the memorial service, again, he seemed to be sort of arguing that, yeah, I actually am a hero, but now he seems to not want to be a hero again. But anyway, this kind of spooks Luke off. The two sort of wind up going back to the barbershop, and it turns out that Scarf is there, and he's bleeding to death. So Claire is forced to do some operating in there to remove at least one of the bullets. They can't remove the other one because it's punctured his liver, and it'll bleed out if they do. So, Scarf confesses to killing Chico. He also points out that he says, look, even if I don't live, I can tell you I have notebooks that connect everything to Cottonmouth, that connect all the cops that he has on his payroll, everything, yeah. And so Luke has to go back to Scarf's apartment, where it just so turns out that Misty and Perez, who is also, like I said, is also on Cottonmouth's payroll, are staking it out. They don't see Luke enter quite easily, but they almost catch him as he leaves. Basically, as I said, Luke goes back to the barbershop. As he goes to the Scarf's apartment, he finds a little black book that has all the documentation they need. He then goes back to the barbershop where Claire has managed to commandeer her mother's catering truck, and they're going to use that to sort of try to covertly smuggle Scarf to the hospital, but Cottonmouth's kind of figured out what's going on, and he sends his thugs after them. And as this is happening, Misty hears a report about a shootout involving a green truck near the police station, which is where they're trying to take Scarf to. And Perez basically stops her, and Misty sort of dummy calls Scarf. Basically, yeah, it's like it's a dummy call. She pretends to call Scarf to draw Perez off to make him confess that they were both on Cottonmouth's payroll, so he knocks Perez out and arrests him. With the interview, Mariah gets confronted about her family's organized criminal past, the fact that she's Cottonmouth's cousin, and, that some of those finances commandeered from the Crispus Attucks Center attack were just Cottonmouth's, but also hers. And so her career is basically torpedoed. Luke, Claire, and Scarf try to escape through the sewers. They get back up just in front of the police station. As Misty arrives, Luke stops a charging car from killing them all. Misty arrives. Scarf dies shortly afterwards, but like I said, they have the evidence to arrest Cottonmouth, and he is arrested, but the police are not eager to pursue charges because, well, there are dirty cops on this, and dirty cops don't look good for PR. So they're willing to very quietly let this go. But also, Claire reminds Luke about what he probably needs to do, and that his fight is truly never over. Also, the looming threat of Diamondback is coming up.
Whoa, Spider-Man!
Sorry I can't hang around.
Because the action's at McDonald's. Now you can get a Spider-Man Happy Meal with cool characters and their hot cars.
Spider-Man, I just saw Scorpion in the drive-thru.
One with every Spider-Man Happy Meal you buy.
Armor up, Iron Man. Engage interlock mechanics. Armor up, War Machine.
That's Particle Beam! Attach front battle computer module.
My brain blast will make scrap metal of you! Not in this lifetime, MODOK! With my rings I rule the land and sea!
Just undersea dome. I'm here to make waves, Mandarin.
Iron Man, War Machine, Hydro Armor Iron Man, and action figures, each sold separately.
Okay, we now have Iron Fist Episode 5, Underleaf Pluck Lotus. We open up with 3 women going to various medical offices to promote a new non-addictive opioid form of heroin. This comes to Danny's attention because it was also on some trace elements of a package he had received from the Chinese triad he beat up in the previous episode, leading him to believe that the Hand were running a drug smuggling operation out of the pier that Rand Industries recently purchased. There's also a subplot about Rand Industries having a chemical plant where some of the people in the surrounding area developed cancer. Danny isn't completely aware of this. He gets approached to this very briefly, and video of it gets caught as he promises to handle this. And really, the Meachums don't want anything to do with this. They don't want to settle. They say, look, we followed every environmental rule. We can't be for blame if we, we said we did everything right. Accidents happen. It's not our fault. This is not our negligence, basically. But Danny, in his good-hearted way, promises to help the families, and yeah, they wind up in a bit of a pickle. Anyway, the other thing is, Danny goes to Colleen's dojo, and she has a new student, and it's Claire Temple. So coincidentally, she shows up in episode 5 of Iron Fist as well. I wouldn't say this is true for all the shows. I want to say it was around episode 4 or 5, maybe even 6, where she popped up in Daredevil. But it's not. But she didn't show up in Jessica Jones until I think episode 10. It was way more towards the end that she showed up. So that's not entirely the case here. But Danny asks Colleen to assist him in scouting out the pier that basically that Rand acquired, because he thinks there's a drug smuggling operation going out of it. Also, there's another subplot in this where it's revealed that Ward has possibly a painkiller addiction. He possibly also took a little bit of heroin. He's been mixing with alcohol. He has a drug problem, basically. He's been loopy, and he takes too much, and he winds up sleeping through a meeting. And this kind of pays off in the next episode. We'll get to it when that happens. Anyway, Danny and Colleen go to the pier. They have a very brief, kind of awkward moment where maybe something romantic might happen. It's not exactly... as they're trying to climb a building, they get a little weird, but they then return to scouting out what's going on. Danny sneaks onto one of the 3 haulers they have. It gets the doors get closed on him before he can find anything out, and it goes off. So Colleen commandeers a taxi and goes after them. Inside, Danny discovers a chemist being smuggled behind everything. It turns out that he's actually responsible for making the synthetic heroin. It's there, and the security for one of them gets into a fight. The chemist gets stabbed, and so Danny has to take... Danny frees himself, gets into the taxi cab with Colleen and the chemist, and they take the chemist to the dojo where Claire meets them. And the chemist explains that he's doing this because the Hand have abducted his daughter. And this causes Claire to flip out because she knows the first experience of the hand. It turns out that Colleen Wing knows experience of the hand. And Danny's been kind of blind to a lot of the hand's activities, apparently. And that's basically how the episode ends. Okay, moving on to episode 6 of Iron Fist, Immortal Emerges from Cave. This episode was directed by the RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan. Basically, the hand began mobilizing 3 agents, technically 3 agents, 2 are brothers, and then there's 2 others, so you could argue 4, but for this case I'm going to say 3 because it's what happens is a 3-tiered thing. But there are 2 brothers known as the Vesnikov brothers. After that we have the Queen of the 9 Spiders, and last but not least we have Scythe. We'll get to them as this happens, but Danny's trying to scout out possible locations they were going to. Unfortunately, Ward wants him to go to this meeting about the cancer lawsuit, and he says, look, I gotta take care of this one thing, I'll try to get back to you. He says, no, I don't trust you, I'm coming along. So they go to scout out these possible warehouses where these haulers may have gone to, and it turns out they find one, and inside the hauler is the severed head of the security guard that Danny fought earlier. Danny takes us, turns out there's a message attached to him saying, look, we're going to put our 3 best fighters. If you can beat them, we'll give you what you want. And that's what happens, basically. Yeah, that's basically the center point of this episode. At this point it happens, Joy basically found out about Ward's drug addiction and is trying to convince him to kick it, tells him to throw out his medication. His medication actually does wind up getting thrown out, but not... he throws it in the garbage with the intent of trying to get it later, but unfortunately his garbage gets thrown out in the process. And as a result, he starts going into this major meeting about trying to figure out how to cover this lawsuit, going through withdrawal symptoms. He has nosebleeds, he's getting really shaky, he can't focus. Meanwhile, Danny goes back to the dojo to explain what's going on. He begins to prepare for this big fight. There's actually this really kind of cool scene where he's meditating and he's actually engaging in this conversation with one of his mentors from Kunlun. Yeah, it's kind of cool because, again, there's sort of this, you have to be willing to do what you need to do. You were sent to, you are the Iron Fist, you have to take care of the hand, you have to eliminate them. Are you willing to do that? Anyway, the time comes and Danny arrives at the hand's temple. He takes on the Vesnikov brothers first. They form a blood circle, and the only way to win the fight is to either kill one of them or knock them out of the circle. And basically Danny manages to knock one of them out of the circle. He knocks the other one nearly out. He says, look, if you want to die, yeah, I'll kill you. If you don't, just roll out. And the other guy rolls out. As this happens, the chemist takes a turn for the worst, so Claire and Colleen take him to the hospital that Claire used to work at, and they check him in to get operated on, but they find out he's not in any of the ORs, and they're trying to actually smuggle him out in the process. But Claire and Colleen manage to stop him before the ambulance can get away. Back with Danny, his next opponent is the Bride of the 9 Spiders. She poisons Danny with several forms of spider venom via these acupuncture needles. But eventually Danny again fights through and takes care of her, knocks her unconscious to win the next round. He then goes on to face Scythe. And again, Danny begins to hear from his mentor saying, you have to kill in this case. You're probably going to have to kill this guy. Danny, Scythe is a weapons fanatic. He says, yeah, weapons obey their masters, and you carry no weapon. And Danny says, I am my own weapon. And he says, then you will disappoint your master. And they're fighting, and I mean, it is kind of nice that this martial arts show has actually got quite a bit of martial arts action in it right now. They start fighting. Danny eventually starts to get the upper hand, but before he can deliver a killing blow to Scythe, Madame Gao, who's the leader of the Hand, she was revealed as the leader of the Hand in the previous episode, except she was already revealed as the leader of the Hand like way back in the first season of Daredevil, so this is nothing spectacular. Yeah, like everyone kind of knows who she is. She's been in it almost as long as Claire Temple has. Anyway, Madame Gao steps out and says, "Look, we have the daughter right here. Will you let him live? I will let her go." And Danny said, "No." And Danny says, "No, my mission is to destroy the Hand." But at the end, he basically says, "No, you know what? Fine, I will yield," because they're basically going to kill the daughter if he kills Scythe. So that's not the case. As Danny prepares to leave, basically leave with the daughter, Madame Gao says, and she talks about the city of Kunlun, in particular this one landmark. He goes, "You've been to Kunlun?" You said, "Yes. You remind me so much of Wendell." Wendell is Wendell Rand, Danny's father. And it's like, oh, he starts to confront her about it, but she just tosses Danny aside. Danny tries to contact his mentor in Kunlun, who won't have anything to do with him because he didn't kill the Hand like he was supposed to. So I don't know if that means Danny doesn't have his Iron Fist connection anymore or not, but yeah, that's basically how it ends. He takes the daughter back, and the credits pretty much roll right after that.
Beware, the mutant-seeking sentinel.
Target identified. Mutant apprehended. Want to mix it up, big boy? My adamantine claws will get Rogue back.
I've always had trouble with man.
My optic blast will give him trouble. Firing projectile arm. Now, Sentinel, you will be defeated.
Sentinel robot playset and X-Men action figures, each sold separately. Are you ready to be an Avenger?
Ultron attack.
Avengers assemble! Wonder Man, Falcon, Hawkeye, Red Wing fires.
Miss Birdbrain.
Hawkeye powers up the Sky Cycle.
Take that, Ultron.
The Sky Cycle conquers evil. The Avengers, united they stand. Figures and Sky Cycle sold separately.
Okay, so episode thoughts on all of this. Well, Luke Cage really seems to just be chugging along. It feels like, again, things are really, really starting to happen now. I mean, Cottonmouth has essentially lost his power in the sense of things. Like, he's still around, obviously. He's not going to get charged or anything, but you notice that he's probably not going to be the #1 guy anymore. In fact, Mariah seems to be stepping into that place. And again, we have the looming threat of Diamondback also. Like I said, Mariah's had her political career basically got torpedoed with all the confrontations over everything that's happened. So, yeah, she seems to be pretty sunk. Oh, yeah, she's probably going to go into league with her brother or their cousin Cottonmouth, but she'll probably be in charge. Everything else, I guess, like I said, it's plugging along. I eagerly await the next episode. As for Iron Fist, well, like I said before, it's nice to finally get some martial arts fighting in this martial arts show. Unfortunately, where I said last episode that I thought Joy and Ward Meacham were fairly strong characters, now not so much. Like I said, there's actually one part of that I didn't talk about where in the midst of his withdrawals, Ward intentionally smashes his hand in a car door so he could try to go get free drugs at a pain clinic, and Joy somehow catches him. I don't know how. Like I said, it's not very interesting, unfortunately. I don't really care. I hate to say that about people suffering from cancer, but I don't really care about the cancer subplot at all in this. Like I said, it's nice to actually see some action in this. It's nice to see Danny actually starting to do something instead of just kind of standing around and fighting only at the last possible minute. But again, it's still lacking something. It's hard to say what it is, but yeah, it is definitely lacking, and I do understand again why people are not liking this show. So, anyway, technically I am recording this on Friday, January 26th, so this is before the wrestling events that are going to be happening this weekend, but I will actually be releasing it after those events, so technically the next video after this is going to be a review of the movie Winchester, and then after that will be the random trade review on Daredevil Parts of a Whole. See you all then. Hey guys, is there a movie you want me to tackle? Even if it's some stinker like Baywatch or the Emoji Movie or something else? Check out my Patreon at Sleepy Time for Cat Productions. See how you can make that happen.